I'm so glad that all of you are here on your lunch hour. Happy Monday to everybody. Um, I want to welcome Magüi Moreno to this special xMinds event. Magüi is a longtime friend of xMinds. She is a certified mindfulness teacher and a parent coach, and she is a parent of a 14-year-old autistic son. Um, so Magüi runs a lot of groups, and she's got a wonderful website with lots of resources. So you can check that out at her website, magüimoreno.com. I can put that in the chat. But really, I want to hand it over to Magüi. And just so you know, we're recording the presentation portion of this talk, and then when we get to Q&A, I will stop recording. We just want to be able to provide the recording to folks who were not able to make it today. All right. With that, Magüi, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Melanie. Thank you so much for the invitation and for the opportunity of being here. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get right into it because I do want to leave quite a bit of time for Q&A or just discussion. I find that a lot of the juicy parts come out when we talk to each other about all these issues. So let me go back to the top and let me know if at any point you can't see the screen, the slides. It's going to be hopefully a short one because again, this is not about the theory. This is about the reality. And the reality is where we often stumble because I think everybody would agree that we all need to take care of ourselves in order to be able to take care of other people. But oftentimes we struggle, and particularly when we have neurodivergent children. So let me see if this works. Today is a conversation. It's not really, I've called this a presentation because I brought some slides, but it's really a conversation. Why? We often start with the what. What do I need to do to take care of myself? No, let's start with the why. Why? Why is it important to take care of ourselves? What is it really beyond what, the specifics? Is it, is it all about eating well, sleeping well, doing exercise? Yes, but what is it really at the core of it? How do I take care of myself? I have no time. I have no energy. This is a common complaint that I hear from many parents and that I sometimes say to myself as well. So, we're all there sometimes, oftentimes. I'm just going to give you six very quick, very simple mindfulness practices or mindfulness-based self-care practices that you can do throughout the day, every day, and that are not going to take too much time. And then we'll open it up for resources. I'll just give you a resource that I brought today and some questions and some discussion really. But first, let's breathe. So here we go. First mindfulness hack. It's very simple. We do it every moment of every hour of every day of our entire lives. And yet we don't use our breath. And our breath can actually be a great way to take care of ourselves and to sometimes just connect with the here and now and get, push the pause button in our frantic minds. So very easy, it doesn't require much time and it doesn't really require anything special, just becoming aware of our breathing. So I'm gonna invite you to plant your feet, whether you're sitting down or standing up, just feel your feet on the ground. I'm going to invite you to either close your eyes or slightly cast them downwards as an indication to our mind that we're just tuning in very briefly. And I'm going to invite you to breathe slowly in through the nose and out through the mouth. And again, no gimmicks. You don't need to breathe in any particular way. The point of this exercise is just to notice that we have a body and that our body needs to breathe. And we can do it 5 times, 10 times, and that's it. It's just checking in with ourselves. And again, the invitation is that as you breathe in, you notice what happens in your body, particularly in your torso. Usually there's an expansion. And as you breathe out through the mouth, you might feel that your shoulders come down or that your jaw relaxes a little bit. And if you don't, that's fine. But again, just taking note of all these very subtle sensations that come with breathing and paying attention to our breath. So if you've got your eyes closed, you can open them now. And we're going to dive right into it. So I brought this, which is a big jar, kind of square jar that I have in my bathroom, and it's full of kind of shells and pebbles. And what I want to say to you is that self-care is the grit. I don't actually have much grit in mine, so that's why I put that photo on for you. Those 2 jars have exactly the same amount of stuff in them, but as you can see, the one on the left is overflowing because the big stuff has come on top and is no longer able to fit in. And the one on the right, we've put the big stuff in first. So we've put the stones, the bigger pebbles in first, then the medium size, and then the sand, the grit. So how does this metaphor help? I'm hoping. Self-care, oftentimes we put on top. We think it's a big pebble, a big stone, and we leave it to last. So we're like, okay, when everybody else is happy in the house, when my kid is completely regulated and my other kids are fine and homework's been done, table's been cleared, dinner's been prepared, my work has been done, when all of that, then I will take care of myself. So what happens? It never happens. It just never happens. So my purpose with this conversation today is to tell you that self-care is not a big stone that you need to put at the end on top of the jar, because it's not going to fit. Self-care is all those little small actions, the grit, that you can sprinkle in many times throughout the day. And therefore, it will fit because you can do it when you go to the bathroom. You can do it in between tasks. You can do it at kind of natural moments that are more conducive to it. And only you can identify those. But it's the grit. It's what goes in between all those other big pebbles and rocks that we need to fit into our day, like work, like taking care of our kids, like getting more educated about our child's conditions or our child's needs, or fighting for their educational rights. Those are big pebbles. Those are big rocks, okay? So again, I'm not saying stop doing those. I'm saying make sure that in between you put in a little bit of grit, a little bit of self-care, because then you'll be able to fit it all in, as you can see. So Melanie has already introduced me, so I'm not gonna take any more time. Just to say that if you hear an accent, it's because I'm originally Spanish, but I'm married to a Brit, hence the British accent. We have been living in Bethesda in Montgomery County for the last 7 years. Before that, we were in the UK. So our son was diagnosed with autism back in Scotland. And we have been here for 7 years, and for half of his lifetime, really, and we love it here. So I'm all about supporting the parents, and this is kind of what's really important, because again, we get a lot of support and we seek a lot of support for our kids, for understanding our kids' needs better, but oftentimes we relegate ourselves to the bottom of the list, and therefore we never get to our own well-being and to our own need for support sometimes as well. So let's start with the why. Why do we need to take care of ourselves? You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot give what you don't have. So oftentimes with caring for others, especially as parents, we sort of minimize that to the bare minimum, making sure that they're fed, that they've slept, to lesser or greater extent, that they go to school, that they have what they need in school to progress and to learn and to be supported. We do a lot of fighting for them. We do a lot of advocacy for them because they are neurodivergent. And we have to do everything else as well, the jobs, whether it's in the house or outside the house. Oftentimes we have partners and we have other kids, and we ourselves are sisters or mothers or fathers or brothers. So we think that caring for others is in some ways mutually exclusive with caring for ourselves, but that's not the case. If you are burnt out, if you are not sleeping well, if you are finding every day is overwhelming, you are not going to be in a situation to handle anything, the big stuff and the small stuff, in a way that doesn't deplete you even further. So I know I don't have to kind of bang on about this because I think we all get it, right? But something that's a bit more subtle that I do want to highlight here, and I've written presence and attention, is that again, oftentimes we forget that caring for others is also not just about providing a meal on every evening, or making sure that kids go to school fully dressed, but also it's about being available to them, to our loved ones. Okay, so being available means having the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth, because again, it's not necessarily just about time, and it's not necessarily just about physical presence. It's not just about being in the same room or in the same house as our kids, but it's about having the bandwidth. It's about having the capacity to attend to our kids, and especially when they are autistic, it can be a challenge to connect to them sometimes. It requires us to be much more emotionally available. And again, we cannot do that if we are burnt out or if we are extremely exhausted. Okay, so, and with attention and presence, you either give it or you don't. It's not something that you can do 10% or 5% or 25%. You're either attending to someone else, to your kid, or you're not. And what we oftentimes do is like, yeah, I'm paying attention to you, but we're multitasking. So we're doing a million other different things. And our kids know this, and we know this, so it doesn't work. It doesn't really work. Not for real, meaningful, deep connection in the moment. And again, I'm not talking about hours of connection. I'm talking about minutes sometimes, okay? It is your responsibility, but it's also your right. The parenting stakes are high when we have neurodivergent kids. I'm sure that we have all heard about the study that was done, I think it was in 2009, 2010, that measured cortisol levels in the saliva of mothers of autistic children. I think they were actually teenagers and young people, and they were comparable to those of soldiers in active combat. Okay, so again, I don't have to tell you, it's hard. It's really hard. The burnout is real, and a lot of it is to do with structural, systemic issues that we cannot fix ourselves. Okay, so that's the reality we face. Now, that does not mean that just because parenting can and is hard, oftentimes, that we just gotta take it lying, that we cannot do anything about it. Okay, and it is really, really the stakes are also high because we are modeling it for our kids. And emotional self-awareness is absolutely crucial. It's a crucial life skill. And again, for our kids, it's for any kid, it's not what you say, it's what you do. So if you're saying taking care of yourself, learning how to control your emotions or how to regulate your emotions or how to be aware of your emotions so you can regulate them better in different ways, you know, to say that to your kid and not be able to do it yourself, it's not going to land. Okay. So what is self-care? It's not the activity. I'm not here to tell you, you know, so breathe mindfully is a type of self-care, but it's not the only activity, right? I'm not here to tell you you need to exercise 5 times a week. I'm not here to tell you you need to eat this or you need to eat that, or you need to read more in the evening so that you, or you need to stop watching things at night. I'm not here to tell you how to do it in the sense of what to do, because this is the problem. Oftentimes when we talk about self-care, we talk about it from the perspective of an activity or a set of activities. And what I'm here to say is that it's about changing your mindset. And my invitation here is to view self-care as a practice of connecting to yourself, listening to your needs. Sometimes, oftentimes as parents, we might not be able to satisfy our needs at that particular moment when we become aware that we have them, because again, sometimes our kids' needs are higher and are more urgent or more, let's say, present, and we want to tackle those. Okay, fine. But listening to ourselves, listening to our needs, that in and of itself is self-care. So even if we just do that, even if we just become more and more aware of when we're tired, of when we need to go to the bathroom, of when we're hungry, of when we have been sitting in front of a computer for 4 hours without taking a break, even those simple, that simple and yet hard, because again, we get completely hyper focused on, we're like firefighters, we're constantly, putting out fires. And when there are no fires, we look for them, we look for kind of problems, for things to solve, right? So self-care is not that. And that's why it's not another to-do. If we approach self-care as an additional obligation, an additional thing that I need to do every day, then we are going completely against the argument that I'm making here, which is that it's not something that you need to do. It's an orientation towards yourself, towards your need. It's just connecting to yourself. And again, simple as it may sound, we struggle to do that because oftentimes we're very disconnected from ourselves because we have been living in firefighter mode for months or years. Okay, so then how do we do it? If it's not the activity, like how do I decide? I have no time and I have no energy. And actually, the energy, sometimes it's even more of a kind of valid argument against self-care. But again, what I'm saying here is that I'm not asking you to go for a 2-mile walk if you don't have the energy and if you don't have the time. So a couple of 3 tips, ideas, kind of conversation openers. Prioritizing your emotional well-being. Okay, so think of it as an emotional lighthouse. How do you want to feel? Don't start with how much time do I have, what can I squeeze in, but start with how do I want to feel? Because some days you are going to want to feel productive, or you're going to want to feel re-energized, say by doing some exercise or going for a walk, and you might find that you have the time, or you might make the time for that. But some days you are exhausted, physically exhausted, and actually it might serve you better to put your feet up and close your eyes for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And some days you might find that self-care is tidying up your kitchen drawers. I do that. I love tidying up, and maybe I should be a Marie Kondo coach. I love tidying up. For me, it's emotionally very satisfying. And some days when I feel that my life is chaotic or that I don't have a handle on things, I tidy up. And that helps me to feel more in control. So tidying up can be a form of self-care. So again, it's not the what, it's the how do I want to feel? If we start with how do I want to feel, or what do I need right now, then you're going to find that you can do small acts of self-care that actually go further, a long way, Okay, so the second sort of key or tip is to adjust expectations, because we approach self-care again with a perfectionistic mindset that I have to go to the gym. I've paid this gym membership and I have to go for an hour and a half because I want to take this class, but I don't have time, therefore I don't do it, and then I feel awful because I haven't done it, and because I'm paying this money, and because I never go, and and then the inner critical dialogue goes on and on and on. So accept that you're not going to be able to go for a spa day for a whole day, maybe, or that you're not going to be able to go to that class in the gym that you want to go. Accept that you might not be able to make that time, and adapt any self-care to fit around your life, rather than trying to fit your life around some kind of self-care regime. Again, oftentimes we become very rigid. It needs to be like this. I need to work out, and it needs to be 3 times a week. Okay, well, what if it's not 3 times a week? Anything that's creating a sense of obligation and a sense of falling short in you is not self-care. And that is also not being complacent with yourself, because if you don't go to the gym despite having the time and despite having the membership, because you always find excuses, and instead you're kind of watching Netflix, then you need to think through why you want to go to the gym in the first place, or why you end up watching Netflix. You need to check in with yourself. Okay, so again, this is not the idea here is not to just be self-complacent, but to understand that when we approach self-care from the point of view of meeting our needs at that moment, we're more likely to actually carry it through, to actually see it through and do it. And then the last thing I wanted to say is the self-care minimum is just talk nicely to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Mind your inner dialogue. If the only self-care activity or a thing that you do is to just be much less critical of yourself, that's already a huge start, because the way we speak to ourselves is not something that we would do with anyone else. We are hypercritical of ourselves. We're always, assessing ourselves as falling short on everything. We're always demanding of ourselves. And I think that is the other key. If we approach self-care as, as a nice comfy blanket, as opposed to it's something else I need to do, and if I don't do it, then I'm just a failure because I can't even take care of myself, And this is the kind of dialogue that I hear parents have all the time, especially moms. Actually, we're hypercritical. I need to look this way. I need to, put some makeup on. I need to get out of my leggings. That's not, that hypercritical dialogue is not self-care, and it is kind of, that voice is a very sort of demanding voice. That is not self-care. So just 4, actually, I don't know why I said 6, it's 4 practices that are very simple, that you will have heard a million times before. The first one we've already done is breathing. And again, breathing, I forget. I mean, you don't forget to breathe, obviously, but it's the only automatic physiological function that we can actually control. But because it's automatic, we just kind of forget that it's there, right? But when we connect to it, it can really change our nervous system. It can really calm our nervous system, and this is well studied. So a very practical tip to not forget to leverage the good benefits of breathing is to try to do it every time you go to the bathroom. That's what I do. So when I'm sitting on the bathroom, I try to breathe. Rather than taking my phone with me to the bathroom, I try not to do that. I try to just sit there, Do what I have to do and just breathe, and just, it takes a minute, that's it. But, how many times do we go to the bathroom a day? Many times. Those can be mental pauses. Those can be time for a mental pause. And it does help you connect to your body, which again helps you to connect to this moment and stop obsessing for whatever it is that you've been obsessing, even if it's just for a minute, because you will go back to obsessing about whatever it was that you were obsessing before. But it does give this nervous system a brief pause. And when you have a lot of those brief pauses throughout the day, then that can really make a difference. The other time that can be good is when you switch from one task to another. So right now I'm sitting and I'm presenting this to you. When this is over, this event is over, I will probably get up and go and have lunch. That is a transition. There are many moments of transition throughout the day. Those are also good moments to literally just take a minute and just breathe or stretch or move the body. And again, it doesn't require anything. You don't have to change into gym gear, nothing. It's just moving your body. And whether you focus it on moving your body or whether you focus it on breathing, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like the same thing. It's a nervous system reset. Focusing on one thing. Again, we are multitasking. And I know that technology doesn't help, our social values, hyper connectivity, doing everything fast, it doesn't help. But really avoiding multitasking as much as possible, it also calms the nervous system. Okay, and especially when it comes to interacting with our children, because to give your attention is the purest form of generosity. I think it was Simone Weil who said that. So that's an actual quote. It really makes a difference, especially in interactive situations, so social situations where we're dealing with someone else. Do a 180. So again, instead of focusing always on what's happening to me, what's happening to my kid, what's happening to, this country, be interested in how you relate to whatever is happening. So of course you will focus on what's happening because that's what we all do, but then don't just leave it at that. Just be curious. Oh, why am I feeling this way? What am I thinking that is making me feel this way? It can be simple as that. And sometimes we don't know, and that's fine too. But having that orientation back to why am I feeling this way, or why am I thinking this, it can be helpful, and it helps us to reconnect to ourselves. It's almost like getting to know ourselves again. Okay, and then be thankful for anything. And again, the gratitude piece, I'm sure you've had a million times, and it can be really triggering for some people who are going through a very rough time, and who can, oftentimes rightly say, well, I have nothing to be, grateful for. It can sometimes make you go the other way of focusing on all the things that are not good, that are not easy, that are not nice. But what I'm saying here is, again, being thankful is a practice, like breathing, mindfully. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. And being thankful for anything, we can all be thankful for something, for having internet, for having a device that we can connect through and listen to someone talk about self-care. We can be thankful for the slightly warmer temperatures today, or the fact that it's going to be actually supposedly quite nice this week here. You can be thankful for very, very simple things, and it does make a difference. We have a little practice at home at dinner. We go around the table. Well, there's only 3 of us. And we just say 1 or 2 things that we're thankful for that day. And we just say it out loud. We don't question each other. We don't say why. Sometimes it leads us into conversation, but it doesn't have to, because the whole point is just to say it and to be witnessed by our loved ones in saying it. But again, you don't have to share it if you don't want to, but just being really, really making time to be thankful in your life does make a difference. Okay, I do have a 4-part audio series, and today, as I was getting all this stuff ready, I realized that my website, which Melanie mentioned and left on the chat before, has crashed in English. I work in both Spanish and English, and the English version of it is not working very well. So I was going to give you the URL for receiving this 3-part audio series, but instead I've had to create a QR code that takes you straight into my distribution list so that I can send it to you if you are interested. And I go a bit more into this. Again, they're very short audios. Audios are actually good because you can multitask. So you can listen to them while you're preparing dinner or doing something else. And they are under 10 minutes each. And there's 4 of them. So if you scan the QR code, you'll get added to my mailing list and I can send them to you.